Cold open. No music, just ambient restaurant noise, clinking glass, low chatter. The water hit me before I even saw it coming. Beat. Not a splash, not an accident. A full, deliberate pour, ice and all, straight down the back of my neck. Pause, let that land. And the whole table laughed. Not nervous laughter. Not the awkward kind that dies quickly because someone realizes they went too far. No. Deep, comfortable, entitled laughter. Yet the kind that belongs to people who have never once in their lives faced a consequence. Quietly, almost to himself, the ice slid down my spine like a slow warning. My white server's shirt went transparent in seconds. I could feel every eye in the private dining room shift toward me. Some with pity, most with curiosity. A few with that particular brand of cruelty that only comes out when someone decides you're not a person. You're a prop. I didn't move. Steady breath. I want you to understand something about me before this story goes any further. My name is Kang Minjae, but the 3 men I married, they call me Mila. And I know, that sounds soft. Sounds like the kind of name that belongs to someone who cries in bathrooms and writes sad poetry in notebooks. Dry, deadpan. I do write in notebooks, but it's mostly grocery lists and passive-aggressive observations about rude customers. Very different energy. In a slight shift, grounding. I am 26 years old. I am an Omega. And I chose, deliberately, consciously, stubbornly, to work a normal job in a normal restaurant in Gangnam, Seoul, while being married to 3 of the most catastrophically powerful alphas on the Korean peninsula. Do they know I'm working here? Long pause. Partially. A beat, then quieter. Look, it's complicated, and we will absolutely get to that. But right now, I'm standing in the private dining room of Cheum, one of Seoul's finest contemporary restaurants, with melted ice water dripping off my collar, and the woman who poured it, silver rings on every finger, lips the color of bruised plums, is looking at me like I'm a stain she's waiting for someone else to clean up. Controlled, no trembling. Mila does not tremble for people like this. Her name, I would later learn, is Yoon Serin, 34, heiress to Yoon Pharma, and the kind of woman who schedules her cruelty into her calendar right after Pilates. She had 4 friends at the table. They ranged from mildly awful to catastrophically awful, the way rich people always do. Like a buffet of bad decisions wearing designer clothes. "Excuse me," she said, and her voice had that practiced sweetness that costs more than my rent. Beat. You bumped my elbow. Mila flat. I had not bumped her elbow. I had set a water glass down 15 centimeters from her right hand, turned to collect the appetizer plates, and somehow, that constituted an assault worth responding to with an entire pitcher of ice water. Pause. The girl beside her, younger, wearing a pink blazer 2 sizes too small for her personality, was already pulling out her phone. Of course she was. Something sharp moves through his chest. Not fear, not humiliation, recognition. I have a gift. Not the romantic kind you read about in Omegaverse serials. No glowing marks, no soulmate visions, no dramatic scent explosion. Mine is quieter. I can feel the intention behind a person's energy before they act on it. Most Omegas use their sensitivity for bonding, for reading their alpha's emotional states, for the soft architecture of pack life. I use mine like a threat assessment system. Have since I was 12. You learn quickly when you grow up without a pack, without protection, and without anyone who smells like home. You learn to read the room before the room reads you. Tightly. And right now, the room was reading. This is about to get worse. The girl with the phone had already pressed record. Yoon Serin leaned back in her chair, completely unbothered, and tilted her head at me the way you tilt your head at something you're deciding whether to keep or throw away. "You're an Omega, aren't you?" she said. Not a question, an observation she was making loudly, and for the whole table to hear, because the answer was supposed to mean something, was supposed to reduce me to something. Mila quiet, the quietest dangerous thing you've ever heard. In Korea, in the year we're living in, Omega's working service jobs wasn't uncommon, but it was, in certain circles, considered beneath the natural order. Old money families still carried that rot in their bones. The idea that Omegas existed to be paired, claimed, kept soft and quiet in someone's home. Gar's dry, adorable concept. Wrong Omega. The scent blocker patch behind my ear had been doing its job all evening. No alpha hormones bleeding through, no pack bond scent. Nothing that would identify me as anything other than a regular server with good posture and an uncommonly good memory for wine pairings, which meant she had no idea, mark the beat, no idea that the hands she just poured ice water on belonged to a man who goes home every night to 3 alphas who would, and I say this without exaggeration, rearrange the geography of Seoul if they knew someone had touched me. Pause. Almost amused, almost not. I should have walked away. Gotten a towel. Let the manager handle it. That was the smart move. The safe move. A beat of silence then. Controlled, clear, no wobble. Instead, I looked directly at Yoon Serin. And I smiled. Not the apology smile. Not the please don't complain to my manager smile. The other one. Softly, dangerously even, speaking only to her. "Let me get you a fresh glass." She blinked. She'd expected tears. Maybe stuttering. She'd expected the performance of a person being made small. Mila, still smiling. She did not know that the last time someone made me feel small, they ended up relocating to Busan. Voluntarily. Beat. I turned. I walked toward the service corridor with my spine straight and my shirt soaked, and my heart doing something it absolutely should not have been doing. Because it wasn't breaking. It wasn't racing in fear. Quiet, slow burn. It was counting. A distant sound. The girl's phone still filming, Serin laughing again, the table applauding like she'd done something impressive. My superpower was already working, but I could feel the shape of what was coming before it arrived. Like pressure changes before rain. And what I felt pressing in from every direction in that moment wasn't humiliation. Long pause. It was the particular electric stillness that comes right before something irreversible. Very quietly. I just didn't know yet that irreversible had 3 faces. Pause. 3 very familiar faces. Ambient sound returns. The soft hiss of the service corridor, fluorescent hum, our distant kitchen clatter. 3 very familiar faces. Beat. But we're not there yet. Dry, composed. First, I need to get through the next 4 hours of my shift without anyone else deciding my shirt is a target. I pushed through the service corridor door and grabbed a clean towel from the linen stack. My reflection caught briefly in the stainless steel panel beside the prep counter. Soaked collar, perfectly neutral expression, eyes that gave away absolutely nothing. Quietly, Ash to himself. 26 years of practice. I have mastered the art of looking fine while absolutely not being fine. A beat, then honest. Okay, I was a little fine. Maybe 60% fine. The other 40% was calculating exactly how many Omegas in this city got ice water poured on them tonight by a woman wearing a 20 million won watch. Pause. Statistically, probably more than one. That was the part that actually made my chest tight. Not the water. Not the laughter. Not the girl with the phone who had definitely already uploaded it somewhere. The pattern of it. Footsteps. Mila moves back toward the dining floor. I swapped my shirt in the staff room in under 90 seconds. Clean uniform, fresh towel over my forearm, scent blocker patch still firmly in place. Back on the floor before my manager, Mr. Oh Sungjin, even noticed I'd been gone. He was a small, An perpetually anxious beta who communicated primarily through clipboard gestures and the strategic deployment of his reading glasses. He glided up beside me the moment I re-entered the dining room. Mr. O hushed, frantic. Table 7 is asking about the tasting menu substitutions again, and Table 12 wants to know if the sommelier can come out before the… Mila, completely calm. I'll handle 7. Tell Park to give 12 the 2019 Burgundy first. They won't ask again after that. Mr. O blinks. He opened his mouth, closed it, made a small gesture with his clipboard that I had come to understand meant, "How are you always right?" and walked away. Mila, dry. I have been working at Cheum for 7 months. I know this restaurant better than I know some of my own habits. A beat, something soft and private in his voice. I started here because I needed something that was mine. Not Mafia adjacent, not pack adjacent. I'm not wrapped in the particular brand of controlled chaos that lives inside my own home. Just a job. Tables, orders, wine pairings, the quiet rhythm of service. My husbands think I do consulting work 3 evenings a week. Pause. The consulting work is this. A small guilty exhale. I know. We will have that conversation eventually, probably at high volume. Probably while one of them paces and another one goes dangerously quiet, and the third one tries to mediate and accidentally makes it worse. Almost fond, despite himself. That's just how they are. The ambient sound shifts. Mila moves to table 7, takes an order, exchanges brief professional pleasantries, all on autopilot. Because here's the thing about being married to Kim Ji-soo, Kim Ji-hoon, yes, and Kim Ji-ho. He says the names like they're a melody he's memorized without trying. You learn very quickly that normal, for them, is a concept they intellectually understand but emotionally cannot locate. Footsteps, corridor again, brief break between rounds. Ji-soo is the eldest, 32. He has this way of standing in a room that makes the room rearrange itself around him without anyone realizing it happened. When he looks at you, and he looks all the way at you, like he's reading the parts of yourself you haven't figured out yet. He speaks slowly because he only says things he means. He hasn't raised his voice at me once in the 2 years we've been married. A small, telling pause. He has, however, raised his voice at 3 separate business competitors, 1 city official, and a man who cut me off in traffic. Mila, dry. The traffic one still makes me laugh. Martha's softer. Ji-hoon is 4 minutes younger than Jisoo and operates like he's been in a low-grade competition with those 4 minutes his entire life. He's the loud one. Not aggressive loud, just present loud. He fills space like a song you didn't know was playing until it stopped. He cooks breakfast every morning without being asked. He remembers every small thing I mention wanting and produces it 3 days later like he doesn't want me to notice he was paying attention. For a quiet beat. I always notice. Footsteps, back to the floor, another table, smooth and professional. Ji-ho is the youngest by 11 minutes, and he is, without question, the most dangerous thing I've ever loved. Pause. Wait in that. Not dangerous like violent. Dangerous like precise. He talks less than his brothers and thinks more. He has a stillness to him that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. When he smiles, actually smiles, but not the polite version he uses in public. It does something to the air pressure in the room. Mila, admitting this reluctantly. It does something to me, every single time. I hate it a little. A beat, then quickly. I don't hate it at all. He rounds the corner toward the private dining hallway, and his steps slow slightly. The sound from table 4, Yoon Serin's table, carries faintly through the corridor wall. More laughter. The bright, percussive kind that means someone is performing for the group. My sensor hums low in my chest. Quietly, honest. That's what I call it. My sensor. The thing that reads intention before action. Right now, it was giving me the particular vibration I associated with. This isn't over yet. Mila, muttering under his breath. It never is with women who tip 12%. He adjusts his towel, moves to collect a dessert tray. But somewhere underneath the dry commentary and the steady professionalism and the scent blocker doing its patient, loyal job, something pulls. A thread. Thin and warm and very, very specific. He pauses mid-step. My chest did a thing. Not pain, not fear. Something else. The particular tug I felt sometimes, late at night, when one of them was dreaming badly and I could sense it through the bond before I even woke up. The mating bond. 3 of them. Woven together into something that didn't have a name in any biology textbook I'd ever read because apparently no one had documented what happens when an omega bonds with identical triplet alphas. Dry, groundbreaking research opportunity. Someone should get on that. But his brows pulled together slightly. The tug again, stronger. It felt like awareness, like 3 separate points of consciousness turning in the same direction at the same moment. Very quietly. Toward me. He sets the dessert tray down on the service counter, touches the scent blocker patch. It's still there, still working. They couldn't feel my location through the bond. The blocker handled that. But emotion was trickier. Strong enough emotion had a way of bleeding through no matter what you put on your skin. A beat of stillness. I thought about Yoon Serin's laugh. I thought about the ice water. I thought about the girl's phone, still probably recording. The video probably already living somewhere on the internet with a caption like Omega Waiter gets what he deserves or something equally creative and terrible. His jaw tightens, just slightly. And I felt the bond ripple. Pause. Like 3 heartbeats, suddenly paying attention. Long silence, then very quietly, almost to no one. Oh no. Beat. They felt that. Beat. Okay, new plan. Mila, brisk, internal. Already problem-solving. Do not panic. Do not let the bond pulse again. Think boring thoughts. Think about spreadsheets. Think about the quarterly inventory report Mr. O keeps threatening to make me help with. Think about absolutely anything that does not involve ice water or Yoon Serin's laugh, or the very specific way my chest just lit up like a signal flare aimed directly at 3 alphas who absolutely cannot know I am here right now. Pause. I picked up the dessert tray. I walked to table 9. I smiled at the elderly couple in matching cardigans who were sharing a single slice of yuzu tart and looking at each other like they'd invented the concept of love personally. Softly, genuine for just a second. I love that table. They come every Thursday. They never need menus anymore. They always tip 40% and leave a handwritten note on a napkin that says something like, "Wonderful evening, thank you, young man." Beat, young man. I will take it. He sets the tart down. Exchanges a quiet pleasantry, moves back to the service corridor with his face composed and his chest doing something very inconvenient. The bond doesn't work like a phone call. It's not words. It's not images. It's more like weather, like the specific pressure of a feeling moving through shared air. When I'm calm, they feel calm. When I'm focused, there's a steadiness that travels down the line like a current. When I'm suppressing something, like a beat. Jiho once told me that suppressed emotion on the bond feels like a door being held shut from the inside. Like you can feel the thing pressing against it even if you can't see it. Mila, muttering. He would know. He does that himself constantly. Pot. Kettle. Enormous amounts of mutual repression. He moves through the corridor, checks 2 more tables, delivers a wine recommendation to table 12 that earns him a genuinely delighted response. I controlled my breathing. I'm in for 4, out for 4. The kind of deliberate rhythm that smoothed the bond's surface into something flat and unreadable. Steadying. It worked, mostly. The tug in my chest softened from a pull to a hum. Then, just as he rounds back toward the main floor, my sensor spiked. Sharp. Not anxiety, not anticipation. Proximity. Mila stops moving. The front entrance of Chaeyam sat at the far end of the main dining room. Arched past the curved bar and the tall arrangement of dried pampas grass that the interior designer had clearly been very proud of. From the service corridor entrance, I had a partial sightline to the host stand. Just partial. Enough to see the host, a composed young woman named Bae Yuri who never looked flustered about anything, look up from her podium with the expression of someone who had just been asked a question they were not prepared for. Mila, still not moving, I watching through the gap. She said something, nodded, then turned to gesture toward the interior. And I felt it, not through my eyes, through my chest, that specific warmth, layered, triple, very quietly. No, 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 no. He stepped back into the shadow of the corridor before instinct could humiliate him any further. They were here. Beat. Of course they were here, because this is my life. This is specifically and precisely how my life operates. On the one evening that a woman decided to accessorize me with ice water and the whole thing probably ended up on the internet, my 3 husbands chose tonight to show up at the one restaurant in Gangnam I told them was a client meeting location. Mila pressing his back against the corridor wall, eyes closed briefly. Consulting work. I do consulting work 3 evenings a week. The consulting work was this. Nautical pause. A breath. I had about 45 seconds before they cleared the host stand and entered the main floor. I knew this because I knew how they moved. Jisoo would let Yuri finish speaking before stepping forward because he had manners built into his DNA. Jihoon would already be scanning the room for me before he fully crossed the threshold. Jiho would be last, and he would look exactly once. But he would find me immediately because Jiho always found me immediately, and I had stopped questioning how. Quickly, controlled. I needed to think. Option 1. Walk out and intercept them before they saw the dining room. Problem. Yoon Serin's table was visible from the main floor entrance. If they saw her, if anyone at that table recognized them. Pause. Mila actually winces. Option 2. Stay in the corridor and let Mr. O handle them. Problem, Mr. Sauno handled difficult situations by adjusting his glasses and looking at his clipboard. My husbands were not a clipboard problem. Option 3. A beat. Text Jisoo right now and say, I'm in the bathroom. Meet me at the car. Emergency. Do not enter the dining room. Do not look at any tables. Please and thank you, and I will explain everything later over the very expensive ramen you like. He was already reaching for his phone. His hand stopped. Because the bond shifted. Not my end of it. Theirs. Something moved through it like a stone dropping into still water. A ripple that traveled from the far side of that restaurant to the center of my sternum in under a second. And it didn't feel like curiosity or confusion. Slowly, the realization settling. It felt like recognition. Not of me. I was still blocked. Of something. Mila's sensor hummed with sudden, vivid clarity. The video. Pause. The weight of it. The girl with the phone had posted it. Had to have. And that was the only explanation for why the bond had just shifted from searching to something quieter and more dangerous than searching. Something that had a direction to it. A temperature. Very quietly. Jihoon had seen the video. Jihoon, who remembered every small thing I mentioned wanting. Jihoon, who cooked breakfast every morning. Jihoon, who was currently on the other side of a wall and whose emotional state on the bond felt like a lit match being held very, very still. Fitted a long beat. I heard them before I saw them. Not loud. That was the thing people always misunderstood about the Kim brothers. They did not announce themselves. They did not raise their voices or make a scene on entry the way powerful men in dramas always did. They were quiet. Mila, barely breathing. The kind of quiet that had weight. That moved the air differently. That made every other conversation in a room soften without anyone deciding to soften it. I heard it happen. The gradual, Like unconscious hush that rolled across Cheum's dining floor as three identical faces walked in. Something moves in his chest, complicated and warm and terrified. And then, through the gap in the corridor door, I saw Jihoon. Pause. He was wearing the gray coat, the one I had picked out for him because I said the color made his eyes look like winter. He had laughed at me for saying that. He had worn it approximately 40 times since. Soft, involuntary. His face was composed, professional. I was completely neutral. His hands were in his pockets. Mila notices, and his breath catches. Jihoon only put his hands in his pockets when he was keeping them from doing something else. The bond hummed, low and steady, like a frequency meant only for him. And then Jihoon turned his head. Not toward the host, not toward the bar, not toward any of the visible tables. A beat of pure stillness. Toward the corridor. Directly toward the corridor. Directly toward me. Mila, not moving. Say, not breathing, pressed against that wall. He couldn't see me. The angle was wrong. The light was wrong. I was hidden. Pause. He kept looking anyway. Barely a whisper. Ambient sound. The restaurant hum dropped slightly, like the whole building is holding its breath. Because Jihoon always knew. Beat. And I had approximately 3 seconds before he proved it. Mila, internal, rapid fire. Okay, new plan, revised new plan. And the previous new plan was garbage, and I am abandoning it completely. Option 1 was gone. Option 2 was gone. Option 3 involved a text I no longer had time to send because Jihoon was already moving. He knew this without seeing it. I felt it on the bond. That particular shift in his energy, from held still to deliberate. Like a compass needle that had been uncertain suddenly locking onto true north. True north being, apparently, me. Mila exhales once, quietly. Fine. I straightened my uniform, adjusted the towel over my forearm, checked my expression in the steel panel reflection one more time. Neutral, composed, completely unbothered. Beat. Absolutely falling apart on the inside. But that part was private. Footsteps approaching the corridor door, unhurried but inevitable. The door opened. Jihoon did not burst in. He never burst anywhere. He stepped in the way water moves into a space. Quietly, completely. I'd like he had always been there, and the room was only now noticing. He was taller than I remembered today, which made no sense because he was the same height he had been this morning when I left. But that was the thing about seeing your husband somewhere he wasn't supposed to be. Everything about him became slightly more than usual. Mila, not moving, meeting his eyes directly. Jihoon looked at me. I looked at him. A beat of pure, loaded silence. His expression did not change. That was the thing that made my chest ache a little. He wasn't angry. He wasn't dramatic. He just looked at me the way he always looked at me when I'd done something he didn't understand yet but was already deciding not to punish me for. Quietly, Jihoon. Consulting work. Mila not flinching. Client dinner, very exclusive venue. Jihoon, the same quiet tone. You're wearing an apron. Beat. Mila. It's a fashion choice. Jihoon looks at the apron. Or looks back at him. Pause. Jihoon, and there is something in his voice that is not anger, not humor, but something that lives exactly between the two. Minjae. Mila closes his eyes for exactly 1 second. He only used my full name when he was being serious. When he needed me to stop performing and just be a person standing in front of him. Softly, dropping the bit. 7 months. Jihoon is very still. Mila steady. I needed something that was mine, not connected to you three. Not wrapped in security details and encrypted phones and the particular energy of rooms where everyone is deciding whether to be afraid of us. Just a job. Tables and wine and Thursday regulars who share one dessert and write nice things on napkins. A beat. Jihoon breathes in slowly through his nose. Mila watches him process this, watches the muscle in his jaw move once, carefully. I was going to tell you, Jihoon. When? Mila. When it felt like the right time. Jihoon. And tonight? Does tonight feel like the right time? Pause. And the way he says tonight makes Mila's stomach drop because it means he already knows about more than the job. Quietly. You saw the video. It is not a question. Jihoon holds his gaze for a moment that lasts slightly longer than comfortable. Then, act very quietly. Jisoo saw it first. Beat, the weight of that. Mila absorbs this. Jisoo, the one who spoke slowly because he only said things he meant, the one who hadn't raised his voice at Mila once in 2 years. Mila, careful. How is he? Jihoon, quiet. Mila winces. Quiet from Jisoo was not the same as fine. Quiet from Jisoo was the specific stillness that preceded something irreversible. Mila had seen it exactly twice in 2 years, and both times it had resulted in outcomes he was legally not permitted to discuss. Mila under his breath. And Jiho. Jihoon looks at him with an expression that communicates an entire paragraph in 2 seconds. Mila. That bad? Jihoon. He smiled when he watched it. Pause. Mila. The scary smile or the normal smile? Jihoon. Minjae. You know he only has one smile. Beat. Mila exhaling. Right. Yes. The smile that did things to air pressure. The smile that meant Jiho had already decided something and was simply waiting for the appropriate moment to execute it with maximum precision and minimum noise. Something moves through the bond, distinct and directional, from deeper in the restaurant. Both of them feel it at the same time. Mila and Jihoon turn their heads toward the corridor wall simultaneously, like two people who heard the same sound. Mila, soccer low. Jisoo just figured out where I am. Jihoon, also low. Yes. Mila. On a scale of 1 to irreversible outcomes, where are we right now? Jihoon looks at him for a moment, and something in his face softens just slightly, just at the edges, the way it did sometimes when Mila made him laugh at the wrong moment. Jihoon. You hid a job from us for 7 months. Mila. I prefer maintained professional privacy. Jihoon. Someone poured water on you. Mila. Ice water. Technically more dramatic. Jihoon takes one step closer and the humor drops out of the corridor entirely because he is close now. Close enough that the scent blocker was clearly having a crisis. Close enough that Mila could see the exact place on Jihoon's throat where his pulse was moving faster than his expression admitted. Jihoon, quieter now, and this version of his voice was the private one. Ain't the one that only existed in their home. Are you hurt? Mila opens his mouth. Jihoon. And do not tell me you're fine using that voice you use when you are lying about being fine. Beat. Mila, the performance dropping entirely for just a moment. He looked at Jihoon. Really looked at him. At the gray coat and the careful hands and the pulse point that was telling the truth his face wouldn't. Quietly, honest. No, I'm not hurt. A beat. Then, softer. I was just angry. That's all it was. Jihoon holds his gaze, and in the bond there is something that passes between them that has no name in any language but feels like, I know, I felt it. That's why we're here. Gently, Jihoon reaches out and adjusts the collar of Mila's uniform. A small motion. Barely anything, just straightening what was already straight. Mila. Aku barely audible. You're going to make this into a thing. Jihoon. It already is a thing. Mila. Jihoon. Jihoon. Minjae. Pause. Mila, a last attempt at deflection. I still have 40 minutes left on my shift. Jihoon looks at him with the patience of a man who has been in love with someone chaotic for 2 years and has made his peace with it. Jihoon. No, you don't. Beat. Then the corridor door opens again and the air pressure changes immediately and completely, like the way it always did when the third one arrived. Mila turns. Jiho is standing in the doorway. He is not smiling, which somehow, right now, was worse than the smile. Jiho looking at Mila, voice completely even. Table 4. It is 2 words. It is somehow an entire sentence with a beginning, a middle, and a consequence. Mila's sensor ignites. Quietly. You recognized her. Jiho. We all did. Beat, and the weight of that drops through Mila's chest like a stone through still water. Mila very carefully. Jiho, whatever you're thinking right now. Jiho tilts his head slightly. Just slightly. In the particular way that meant he had already finished thinking and moved on to deciding. Jiho, say quietly. Jisoo wants to see you. Pause. Mila looks at Jihoon. Jihoon looks back with the expression of a man who loves him and cannot save him from this specific moment. Mila straightens his uniform one more time. Under his breath, moving toward the door. 7 months of a perfectly functional secret, and it ends because of a woman with a water pitcher and bad table manners. Jiho stepping aside to let him through, and there is something in his face now that is not anger and not coldness, but something much more focused than either. Quietly, almost to himself. Her name is Yoon Serin. Beat. Mila pauses in the doorway. Jiho. We know her family. The way he says no does not mean acquainted. It does not mean friendly. Mila absorbs this. Softly. How well. Jiho meets his eyes, and in the bond, through all the distance and the scent blocker and the 7 months of careful invisibility, like something moves. Jiho, quiet and absolute. Well enough. The corridor holds the silence for 1 breath, 2, and then Mila steps back into the restaurant, and somewhere at table 4, Yoon Serin is still laughing, completely unaware that the walls just started closing. Beat. I walked back into the dining room with Jiho 1 step behind me and Jihoon somewhere to my left, and the specific sensation of being escorted without anyone touching me. Mila. On internal. This was a skill they had. All 3 of them. The ability to move around me in a way that felt like protection without looking like containment. In another context, I found it deeply comforting. Right now, it felt like being walked to a meeting I had not requested. He scans the room on instinct. Table 7, finishing dessert. Table 12, second bottle of Burgundy, right on schedule. On table 4, his eyes don't go there. Not yet. Table 4 was loud in the way expensive people get loud after the second round. The kind of loud that had settled into itself, comfortable and careless. Yoon Serin's laugh cut across the room at intervals like punctuation in a language built entirely from condescension. Mila keeps his eyes forward. My sensor was doing something complicated. Multiple signals layered on top of each other. On Serin's table radiating that particular current of cruelty mistaken for entertainment. The bond pulling in 3 directions simultaneously. And underneath all of it, 1 signal cleaner and cooler and more deliberate than the rest. Quietly. Jisoo. He found him without looking because the bond made looking unnecessary. Jisoo was standing near the far end of the bar, slightly apart from the main floor, in the narrow space between the tall pampas arrangement and the wall. Not hiding. Jisoo did not hide. He simply occupied space in a way that suggested he had chosen it precisely and the space was grateful. Mila crosses the room toward him and the distance closes slowly. He was wearing the dark navy suit. The one with the single button. He had his phone in his hand, and it was face down, which meant whatever was on it, he had already looked at it enough times and made his decision about it. Mila stops in front of him. Beat of silence. Jisoo looks at him. Not through him, not past him, at him, The full version. The one that read the parts of yourself you hadn't figured out yet. Mila holds it. He was not going to be the first one to speak. He had too much dignity for that, and also he was buying time. Jisoo, unhurried, quiet enough that only Mila can hear. How long has your shift been tonight? Mila, and carefully. 4 hours, Jisoo. And before tonight. Mila. 7 months. Jisoo absorbs this the way he absorbed most things, without visible reaction, just a slight, measured breath through the nose. Mila watches his face for the thing underneath the composure. It was there, just small, just in the way his eyes moved once, briefly to the side before returning. Jisoo, you told us you were consulting. Mila. I am consulting. Yet I consult extensively on which tables get the burgundy first and whether the yuzu tart needs more acid. Critical work. Jisoo looks at him. Mila. That was a joke. Jisoo. I know what it was. Beat. Jisoo, and his voice does not rise. It never rises. It just becomes more precise, like a lens focusing. Why didn't you tell us? Mila is quiet for a moment. Honest. And the honesty costs something small. Because you would have worried. Jisoo. We worry now. Mila. You would have worried before anything happened. You would have assigned someone to the door. Jihoon would have started researching the restaurant's ownership history. Jiho would have done something quiet and efficient that technically broke no laws but resulted in Mr. Nanot receiving a security consultation he never asked for. A beat. Jisoo says nothing. Mila. I needed it to just be a job. Not a protected location. Not an asset. Just a place I went 3 nights a week where I was Kang Minjae, server, wine specialist, and person who can carry 4 plates without dropping any. Pause. Quietly. I'm good at it, Jisoo. I'm genuinely good at it. And it's mine. Jisoo is still looking at him with that full, eye-reading look. Something in his face shifts. Not softening exactly. More like the thing underneath the composure becoming briefly visible. Something careful and aching at the edges. Jisoo, quieter. I know you're good at it. Beat. Mila blinks. Jisoo. You've always been good at being the person in the room that everyone underestimates. Pause. And there it is. The thing beneath the composure. Into present and controlled and real. Jisoo. I also know that knowing that about you does not make it easier to watch someone use it against you. Mila's chest does something it had not been given permission to do. Quietly. It was ice water. I handled it. Jisoo. Yes, you did. Beat. Jisoo. With your spine straight and your face composed and your hands completely steady, and then you walked into that corridor and held the door shut from the inside. Mila stares at him. Jisoo, and meeting his eyes. I felt it, Minjae, on the bond. I felt you hold it shut. The silence between them is not empty. It has weight and texture and the specific warmth of 2 people who know each other well enough that honesty lands differently than it does with anyone else. Mila very quietly. I didn't want you to come in and make it bigger than it was. Jisoo. And now? Mila. Now you're here and it's bigger than it was. Jisoo. And the ghost of something almost warm moves through his expression. Yes, that tends to happen. Beat. Mila looks at him. Jisoo looks back. From across the room, at table 4, Yoon Serin laughs again, and both of them hear it, and neither of them looks. But the bond reacts. All 3 of them, simultaneously, a ripple that moves through Mila's chest like a single note struck on a shared string. Jisoo's jaw tightens. Just once. And just briefly. Mila watches it happen. Carefully. Jiho said you know her family. Jisoo. Yes. Mila. How? Jisoo is quiet for a moment. Not evasive. processing which version of the truth to begin with. Jisoo. Yoon Pharma has been under observation for 14 months. Mila. Observation. Jisoo. The kind that doesn't involve authorities. Mila. Jisoo. Jisoo. There are things moving through their distribution network that have nothing to do with pharmaceuticals. Beat. And Mila's sensor ignites with the particular vibration it reserved for information that recontextualized everything before it. Quietly. What kind of things? Jisoo meets his eyes, and in the bond there is a steadiness that is not reassurance. It is preparation. Jisoo. People. The word lands in the space between them and does not move. Mila absorbs it. His eyes drift involuntarily toward table 4. Yoon Serin, silver rings, bruised plum lips, laughing with her friends over a meal that cost more than most people's rent, completely at ease in her own skin. Completely unaware that the 3 men standing in this restaurant had been watching her family's network for over a year. Mila thinks about the ice water. He thinks about the pattern of it. The specific casual cruelty of a person who had never once faced a consequence. He thinks about the word people and what moves through a distribution network in place of pharmaceuticals, and his stomach does something cold and deliberate. Mila, Ailu, she has no idea who you are. Jisoo. No, Mila. She sat 10 meters away from you tonight and poured ice water on your husband and laughed about it. Jisoo, and his voice is completely level, completely controlled, and somehow that is the most dangerous thing in the room. Yes. A long beat. Mila looks at him. Jisoo looks back. And in the bond, from both sides, the same thing moves through simultaneously. Not rage, not the hot, reactive kind, on something cooler and more patient than rage, the kind of feeling that does not need to hurry because it is already decided. Mila, quietly. What happens now? Jisoo straightens slightly, the small motion of a man who has been still long enough and is ready to move. Jisoo, calm, certain, and completely final. Now we finish your shift. Beat. Mila. That's it? Jisoo. You said it was yours, so we finish it properly. Pause. Something in Mila's chest cracks open in a way he had not budgeted for. Jisoo, already moving his gaze back to the room, already positioning himself with the quiet authority of someone who has decided how the rest of the evening goes. And then we go home. Beat. Mila. And Serin? Jisoo. She'll still be there tomorrow. The way he says tomorrow is not a reassurance. It is a timeline. Beat. I finished my shift. Mila. Art dry. I want that on record. I finished it completely, professionally, and without a single table receiving the wrong order. Table 9's Thursday couple got their check with a complimentary petit four because they always looked slightly sad when the evening ended. And I'd been slipping them extras for 6 months without telling Mr. O because some rules existed specifically to be quietly ignored. Footsteps. Mila moves through the final rounds, composed, unhurried. Jisoo stayed near the bar. Jihoon found a corner booth and sat in it with a glass of water he did not drink, watching the room the way he watched most things Mila was involved in, like he was memorizing the details in case he needed them later. Mila passing the booth, not stopping, voice low. You look like a bodyguard. Jihoon, not looking up from the room. I look like a man having a quiet drink. Mila. You have not touched the drink. Jihoon. I'm pacing myself. Beat. Mila moves on before he smiles where Jihoon can see it. Jiho was the one he could not locate immediately, which was normal. Jiho moved through spaces the way a frequency moved through walls. Present everywhere, visible nowhere, until he chose otherwise. Mila's sensor tracked him automatically, somewhere near the restaurant's east corridor, close to the private dining section. Close to table 4. Mila did not think about that too hard. The last 40 minutes of the shift passed the way the end of shifts always did. Slightly faster than the middle, slightly slower than you wanted. Tables clearing, checks settling, the gradual exhale of a restaurant releasing its evening. He moved on autopilot, muscle memory carrying the work while his mind ran quiet calculations in the background. 7 months. On beat. 7 months of Thursday regulars and wine pairings and Mr. O's clipboard and the particular satisfaction of a job done well in a room where no one knew his last name or his bond status, or the fact that he went home to a penthouse in Cheongdam-dong that had floor-to-ceiling windows and a kitchen that Ji-hoon treated like a personal research laboratory. Soft, private. He did not regret it. Not the job, not the secrecy, not any single Thursday evening he had spent here. But he stood by all of it. A beat of honesty. He was, however, aware that standing by something and being ready to explain it to 3 alphas simultaneously in a domestic setting were 2 entirely different athletic events. Mila, clocking out at the staff room, folding his apron with the specific neatness of someone who respected the uniform even on the last day wearing it. Because it was the last day. He knew that without being told. Lee-Ji-soo had said finish it properly, and that was not permission to continue. That was a goodbye wrapped in respect. Letting him end it on his terms rather than pulling him out mid-shift like a problem being managed. He held the folded apron for a moment. Quietly. That was very Ji-soo. Give you the dignity of the ending even when he was the one who had decided it was ending. He set it on the staff room shelf, under his breath. Thank you for everything, apron. No, you were a good apron. Beat. He picked up his jacket and walked out. The 3 of them were waiting near the entrance when he emerged. Ji-soo and Ji-hoon visible. Ji-ho materializing from the east corridor at the exact moment Mila reached the foyer as though he had been precisely timed, which he probably had. Mr. O appeared from nowhere, clipboard raised, glasses slightly askew. Mr. O flustered. Kang Si, there's the matter of next week's schedule and also the private dining room needs a post-event inventory check. Mila looked at Mr. O with genuine warmth and also the expression of a man who was not coming back. Mila. Park can handle the inventory. He's better at it than me anyway, just don't tell him I said that, it'll go to his head. Mr. O blinked. Mila. You run a good room, Sungjin-si, I mean that. Mr. O opened his mouth. He looked at the 3 identical men standing 6 feet behind Mila with the collective energy of a weather event, looked back at Mila and closed his mouth. Mr. O very carefully. It was a pleasure, Kang Si. Mila. The burgundy for table 12. Always the burgundy first. Remember that. Mr. O nodded with the gravity of a man receiving important instructions. Mila turned. The 4 of them walked out of Cheum into the Gangnam night, and the door closed behind them. And that was that. For beat. Mila, internal. 7 months. Closed quietly on a Tuesday. Life is very committed to the bit. Outside, the night air, cool and carrying the particular smell of the city at this hour. Light traffic, the distant sound of the subway, the way Seoul breathed at 11 p.m. The car was waiting. Black, unmarked, the kind of vehicle that existed in a category between subtle and obvious, that only people with certain resources understood. Their driver, a beta named Kwon Tae-sik who communicated primarily through eyebrow movements and had been with the brothers for 8 years, held the door without comment. Mila gets in first. Ji-hoon slides in beside him immediately, close enough that their shoulders touch, not accidentally. Ji-soo takes the front. Ji-ho gets in on Mila's other side. The door closes. Beat of silence. Mila sitting between his 2 youngest husbands staring straight ahead, Akka with the dignity of a man who made his choices and was prepared to live with them. Quietly. I know you all have things to say. Ji-hoon. Many things. Ji-ho. Some of them can wait. Mila looks at Ji-ho. Ji-ho is looking out the window, his profile clean and still in the city light moving past. The way he said some was doing a lot of work in that sentence. Mila carefully. Which ones can't? Ji-ho turns his head and looks at him. And in the low light of the moving car, his expression is not hard, not cold, but it is focused in the way that made Mila's sensor hum its quiet warning note. Jiho, are you actually hurt? Not the performance of not being hurt. Actually. Beat. Mila holds his gaze. Honest. No. It was cold, and it was humiliating, and it made me angry. But no, I'm not hurt. Jiho holds the eye contact for one more second, reading him the way he always read him, and looking past the words to the thing underneath. Then he nods. Once, and turns back to the window. The knot in Mila's chest loosens slightly. Jihoon, beside him, does something then. He reaches over and takes Mila's hand. Not dramatically, not a statement. Just settles his hand over Mila's in his lap, warm and unhurried, the way you reached for something familiar in the dark. Mila looks down at their hands. Jihoon is not looking at him. He's looking out his own window, jaw relaxed. I feel like this is just what his hand does when Mila is within reach. Something in Mila's chest does the thing it had been doing all evening, the thing he kept not budgeting for. Quietly, only to himself. This. This was the part that was hard to explain to people who had never had it. The way love between them was often not a declaration, but a placement. A hand, a shoulder, a look across a room that said, I see you without requiring a single word to carry it. Sufferer Mila turns his hand over and holds Jihoon's back. The car moves through the city. From the front, Jisoo's voice, calm. Tae-sik, take the long way. Tae-sik's eyebrows move in acknowledgement. Mila. The long way adds 20 minutes. Jisoo. Yes. Pause. Mila. Why? Jisoo. Because you've been on your feet for 4 hours and the night air is good and we are not in a hurry. Mila stares at the back of Jisoo's head. Quietly. Or so quietly. He wanted 20 more minutes before whatever came next. 20 minutes of the city moving past, and Jihoon's hand warm in his, and Jiho a steady presence on his left, and Jisoo's voice giving small, considerate instructions from the front. Mila. He knew. He always knew. Mila leans back against the seat. The city lights move across the window, gold and blue in the soft blur of a Tuesday night in Seoul. And for 20 minutes, nothing is required of any of them except this. Beat. Then Jiho, without turning from the window, very quiet. Her car is a white Genesis. Cheongdam plates. Private parking registered to Yoon Pharma's building on Tehran Row. Silence. Jihoon's thumb moves once across the back of Mila's hand. Jisoo, from the front, the equally quiet. I know. Beat. Mila looks at the city lights. He does not ask how Jiho already knows this. He does not ask what it means that Jisoo already knew. He just holds Jihoon's hand in the dark and watches Seoul pass by and feels, on the bond, the particular quality of 3 minds that have already begun to move. Quietly, to himself. The 20 minutes were a kindness. Pause. Not a pause. A breath before something begins. Beat. The garage was underground, 3 levels below the building, temperature controlled and completely silent in the way that only spaces built for serious money ever were. Tae-sik pulled in with the practiced ease of 8 years and stopped without being directed. Mila unbuckling home. He said the word in his head the way he always said it when they pulled in. Not as a location, as a fact. As something that had taken him 26 years to find and still occasionally surprised him by existing. They got out. Tae-sik gave his eyebrow farewell, which meant good night and also I saw nothing, as always, and pulled away toward the staff level. The elevator was waiting. Mila stepped in, Jihoon beside him, Jiho behind, Jisoo last. Yet in the doors closed, and for a moment they were just 4 people in a small lit box moving upward, and the only sound was the soft mechanical pull of the cables and the city somewhere above them. Mila looked at the elevator doors. He could feel all three of them without turning around. Jisoo, directly behind him, the composed weight of him, steady as a wall. Jihoon to his left, still close. I not touching now, but present in that particular way that felt like touching anyway. Jiho to his right, still and precise, his energy the quietest and somehow the loudest. The number above the doors climbed. Mila dry, because silence in enclosed spaces with all three of them required management. I wanted on record that I was excellent at my job. Jihoon. We know. Mila. 4 plates at once, multiple times. Oike no drops. Jihoon. Minjae. Mila. The burgundy strategy alone was worth the 7 months. Jiho from his right, absolutely flat. You trained a restaurant staff on wine sequencing. Mila. I elevated the dining experience. Jiho. For other people. Mila. Community service. Beat. Jisoo, from behind him. And there is something in his voice that is controlled amusement wearing the coat of seriousness. Minjae. Mila. Still here. Jisoo. We will discuss this properly inside. Mila. I assumed. Jisoo. And you are not in trouble. Beat. Mila turned slightly, enough to see the edge of Jisoo's profile. Jisoo is looking at the doors. Jisoo quieter. You needed something that was yours. And I understand that. Pause. Mila faces forward again. Quietly. But, Jisoo. But we would like to not find out about things that affect your safety through a video posted online. Mila. That's fair. Jisoo. Yes, it is. The elevator opens. The penthouse foyer. Warm light. Enough the kind of space that understood the difference between expensive and welcoming and had managed to be both. Mila stepped out and felt the apartment receive him the way it always did. There was no other word for it. It received him. The warmth, the particular scent of the space that was all 4 of them layered together over 2 years into something that had no name but meant safe. He exhaled. Not dramatically. Just the quiet release of a body that had been performing composure for 4 hours and could now stop. Jihoon was already moving toward the kitchen. Mila, automatic. You don't have to cook, it's almost midnight. Jihoon, opening the refrigerator with the energy of a man who had already decided. I'm not cooking. I'm heating. Mila, that's the same thing in your hands. Jihoon pulls out a covered container with the focused satisfaction of someone who had prepared for this scenario. I made doenjang jjigae this afternoon. It just needs 5 minutes. Beat. Mila stares at him. Jihoon, not looking up. You always come home hungry from a long shift. You mentioned that once 4 months ago. Mila. I mentioned it once. Jihoon. I have a good memory. Pause. Mila to no one in particular, gesturing vaguely at Jihoon. This is what I live with. It's a lot. Jiho passes him toward the living area, setting his jacket over the back of a chair. Sit down, Minjae. Not unkindly, just Jiho, direct the way water was wet. Mila sat on the couch. Jisoo settled into the armchair across from him, jacket still on, the single button done like the conversation required that level of intention. Jiho sat at the other end of the couch, one arm along the back. I turned slightly toward Mila. The kitchen sounds were soft behind them, the low flame under the pot, the particular domestic percussion of Jihoon doing the thing that made him Jihoon. Mila looked at Jisoo. Jisoo looked back. Mila? Okay, I'll go first. Jisoo. Please. Mila straightening slightly, meeting his eyes directly because he did not do this any other way. I should have told you about the job, not because I needed your permission, but because you're my husband's and keeping things from you was not fair to the bond, and I knew that, and I did it anyway, because I was scared that if you knew, it would stop being mine. Pause. Honest. And it cost more this time. I was also scared that you'd worry, and that the worrying would become managing, and that the managing, even coming from a good place, would turn something I loved into something supervised. And I did not want that. Silence. Jisoo. That's a fair thing to be scared of. Mila blinks. Jisoo. We have not always been good at letting things be yours without making them ours as well. That is something we can do better. Mila stares at him. Jisoo, meeting his eyes. We are also asking, going forward, that you trust us with the things that affect your safety, not to control them, to know about them. Mila. Those are two different requests. Jisoo. Yes, both valid. Beat. Mila looks at Jiho. Jiho. Don't look at me like I'm going to argue with him. He's right. Mila. You always agree with Jisoo. Jiho. I agree with correct things. From the kitchen, Jihoon. He disagreed with Jisoo last Thursday about the parking situation, and they didn't speak for 2 hours. Jiho completely flat. That was different. Jihoon. He cried. Jiho. I did not cry. I was processing. Mila, despite everything, Ma feels something loosen in his chest. Softly, helplessly, I love you all so much. It's genuinely inconvenient how much I love you. The room settles with that. Jihoon appears from the kitchen carrying a bowl of jjigae, steam rising, the smell of it filling the living room with something so deeply comforting that Mila's whole body responds before his brain catches up. Jihoon sets it on the low table in front of him with a spoon and a folded napkin, and then sits beside him, eye closer than Jiho, close enough that their thighs press together. Mila picks up the spoon. First taste. His eyes close for one involuntary second. Quietly. Okay, you win. You've always won. It's the cooking. Jihoon, satisfied in the particular private way he got when Mila ate something he'd made. I know. Beat. Mila eats. And they let him. No one speaks for a moment, and it is not uncomfortable silence. It is the silence of people who have enough history that quiet is not a void to fill, but a thing they can share. Then Jisoo, gently, inevitably. We need to talk about Yoon Serin. Mila sets his spoon down carefully. Jisoo. Not tonight, not all of it. But you should know what you walked into without realizing it. Mila. The distribution network. Jisoo. It runs further than her family's company. It has branches. People in it at multiple levels. Some of them move product. Some of them move. Jisoo pauses, choosing his words with that precise economy of his. Jisoo. Individuals. Specifically omegas. Specifically ones without strong pack bonds or registered mates. The warmth of the jjigae and the warmth of the apartment and the warmth of the bond all continue. And underneath all of it, cold. Mila. How long has this been running? Jiho quiet, from his end of the couch. We believe at minimum 3 years, possibly longer. The structure is layered. It's difficult to trace from the outside. Mila. And tonight, her being at Cheam tonight. Jisoo. May have been coincidence. Pause. Jiho. Or may not. The cold underneath sharpens. Mila thinks about his scent blocker. He thinks about 7 months at that restaurant. He thinks about the censor. His censor, which had told him all evening that what was coming wasn't just personal. Quietly, mostly to himself. I felt it when she poured the water. My censor didn't read it as cruelty for cruelty's sake. Jisoo, very still, watching him. What did it read? Mila lifts his eyes. Beat, slowly. It read like something being tested. Silence. Jihoon's hand finds his knee under the table. Not dramatic, just there. Jisoo holds his gaze for a long moment. Then measured, deliberate. We will not let anything touch you. Mila. I know. Jisoo, I need you to actually know it. Not perform knowing it. Mila holds his gaze. Honestly, all the way honest, the door open. I know, Jisoo. Something passes through Jisoo's eyes. The thing beneath the composure, present and real and careful with itself. He nods once. Jiho standing slowly, the motion of a man done with sitting still. Then tonight we sleep. Beat. Mila looks up at him. Jiho looking back down, and there it is, small, private, only for this room. The smile. The real one. Jiho, quietly. And tomorrow, we begin. Beat. Tomorrow arrived the way it always did in this apartment. Mila quietly. With Jihoon in the kitchen. The smell reached him before full consciousness did. Sesame oil and egg and the particular warmth of rice that had been kept perfectly. His brain registered it the way it registered the bond. Automatically. Before he decided to. He was in the main bedroom, the big one. The one they all shared because Jiho had said once, very practically, that separate rooms were inefficient, and Jisoo had agreed with the specific expression he used when something made emotional sense that he was framing as logic, and Mila had not argued because he had not wanted separate rooms either. He was on his side of the bed. Jisoo's side was already empty, sheets cool, which meant he had been up for at least an hour. Jiho's side was also empty. Mila stared at the ceiling. Beat. Mila, internal, very calm. They are already moving. So he knew this the way he knew most things about them. Not through the bond exactly, though the bond confirmed it. Through pattern. Through 2 years of watching 3 men who loved him also happened to be the kind of people who, once they decided something, began before sunrise. He sat up. His body registered 4 hours of waitstaff work before his brain was fully online. Both feet, lower back, in the specific protest of someone who had carried plates for longer than their body had recently been asked to carry plates. Mila, to his own feet. I know, I agree. We have opinions about last night. He stood anyway. Bathroom, face, the minimum required to feel human. He pulled on a soft gray shirt and track pants and did not check his reflection again because he had met his reflection's energy quota for the week. He walked out to the main living area. Jihoon was at the stove, and as predicted, moving between 2 pans with the focused ease of someone who cooked the way other people breathed. The kitchen counter had 3 separate preparation stations going simultaneously and still looked controlled. Mila stopped in the kitchen doorway. Jihoon, without turning. Sit down, 10 minutes. Mila. Where are the others? Jihoon. Jisoo is in the study. Jiho left at 5. Beat. Mila. 5 in the morning. Jihoon. He said he had an errand. Mila. Jiho does not run errands at 5 in the morning. Jihoon turns briefly to look at him with the expression of a man who agrees completely and has chosen not to examine it too closely before breakfast. Jihoon. Sit down, Minjae. Mila sat at the kitchen island. Jihoon set a cup of tea in front of him without being asked, the kind Mila drank in the morning. I'm the one with the roasted barley that tasted like something that had decided to be warm on purpose. Mila wrapped both hands around it. Quietly. You made 3 separate things. Jihoon. Jisoo hasn't eaten yet, and Jiho will be back before 8. He always comes back before 8 when he goes out early. Mila looks at him. Jihoon plates something and slides it across the island. Soft egg over rice, sesame, and scallion. And the exact ratio Mila would have asked for if he had been asked. Mila, you knew exactly what I'd want. Jihoon, turning back to the stove. You want the same thing every morning after a hard night. Something warm and simple. Pause. Mila picks up his chopsticks. Softly, not making a thing of it, just saying it. I love you, Jihoon. Jihoon's shoulders do something small. A shift. and the particular physical response of a person receiving something they wanted but didn't ask for. Ji-hoon, facing the stove. Eat your breakfast. Mila, eating. That means I love you too in Ji-hoon. Ji-hoon. I know what it means. Beat, and in the bond, warm, uncomplicated, true. Mila ate. The study door opened and Jisoo came out, and he had changed from last night into a different suit, dark charcoal, which meant he had slept for some hours and risen with intention, which was exactly as unsurprising as it was slightly intimidating at 7 in the morning. Jisoo. You're up? Mila. Your powers of observation are remarkable. Jisoo, moving to the island, accepting the coffee Ji-hoon already had waiting without a word exchanged, the specific telepathy of people who had shared a kitchen for years. Jisoo, how did you sleep? Mila. 4 hours and deeply. Sakyu? Jisoo. Enough, Mila. That means 3 hours, and you were on your laptop for 2 of them. Jisoo looks at him over his coffee. Jisoo. The Yoon Pharma financial structure is more interesting than I expected. Mila. Most people would say alarming. Jisoo. That too. Beat. Mila sets down his chopsticks. Because the food was almost gone, and the morning had arrived at the place where it was going to become something more than breakfast. Mila. Tell me. Jisoo looks at him. Mila. Don't manage the information. Now tell me what you found. Jisoo is quiet for a moment. Then he sets down his coffee and gives Mila the look that meant, I am going to tell you because you asked directly and you deserve direct. Jisoo. Yoon Pharma's distribution network has 17 registered subsidiary companies. 6 of them exist only on paper. 3 of those 6 share a logistics contractor that has no public profile, no registered employees, and has processed transactions totaling 400 billion won in the last 2 years. Mila? For pharmaceutical distribution. Jisoo. For nothing that can be named. Beat. Mila. And the Omegas. Jisoo. We have 3 confirmed cases. Individuals who were reported missing, all unregistered, all without strong pack bonds. In all last seen in locations connected to Yoon Pharma's subsidiary network. The kitchen is warm and the food was good and outside Seoul is waking up and none of that moves the cold underneath. Mila. 3 confirmed. How many unconfirmed? Jisoo meets his eyes. Jisoo. We believe closer to 30. Silence. Mila absorbs this. He thinks about his scent blocker. A patient behind his ear for 7 months. He thinks about the sensor, something being tested. Quietly. She sat in that restaurant for 3 hours last night. Jisoo. Yes. Mila. Chaeum takes reservations 2 weeks in advance for the private dining rooms. Jisoo is very still. Mila. And slowly. I wasn't a random target for a rude woman having a bad night. Pause. Jisoo. We don't know that yet. Mila. Jisoo. Jisoo. We don't know it with certainty. Mila. But you think it. Jisoo holds his gaze for a long moment and the thing beneath his composure is present and controlled and has been awake since 5 in the morning sitting with exactly this. Jisoo. Sir, carefully. I think it is a possibility we are taking seriously. The front door opens. All 3 of them turn. Ji-ho walks in. He's wearing different clothes than yesterday, which means he had gone somewhere specific enough to dress for it. He's carrying nothing visible. His expression is the neutral one, the public one. But his eyes, when they land on Mila, are the private version. Ji-ho. You're up. Mila. Everyone keeps saying that like they expected otherwise. Ji-ho moves into the kitchen, accepts the plate Ji-hoon has already waiting without ceremony. Ein stands at the counter rather than sitting because Ji-ho ate standing when he had things still moving in his head. Mila watches him. Mila. What was the errand? Ji-ho eats one precise bite. Ji-ho. I went to see someone. Mila, at 5 in the morning. Jiho. He keeps early hours. Mila. Jiho. Jiho looks at him, and there is something in his face now that Mila had only seen a handful of times, and something that was not quite anger and not quite grief, but lived in the neighborhood of both. Jiho. The logistics contractor I mentioned to Jisoo last night, the one with no public profile. Jisoo, very still. You found a name. Jiho. I found more than a name. Beat. Jihoon has stopped cooking. The kitchen is completely quiet. Jiho sets down his chopsticks and looks at all three of them, moving from Jisoo to Jihoon to Mila. Then when his eyes land on Mila, they stay. Jiho. The contractor's primary contact inside Yoon Pharma's operation is someone who has been managing their Seoul network for 2 years. Pause. Jiho. His name is Park Seon-jae. Beat, nothing. Jiho, watching Mila's face. You know that name. It is not a question. Mila's sensor ignites so fast it almost knocks the breath out of him. He knows that name. He knows it the way you know a scar, Park Seon-jae. Quietly. And his voice comes out completely steady, which was either composure or shock doing composure's job. He was my caseworker when I was 14, after my pact dissolved. The kitchen holds that. Jihoon makes a sound that is very small and very controlled. Jisoo's jaw tightens once. Jiho does not look away from Mila. Mila, the pieces arriving in sequence now, the sensor reading them like a current moving through still water. He knew I was unregistered. He processed my file. He knew exactly what I was, and that I had no bond protection and no pack and no one who would... He stops. Beat. Very quietly. He referred me to 3 different housing programs that all fell through. Pause. Jiho. Those programs were subsidiaries. The cold underneath is not cold anymore. It is something else. Something with a shape and a name and 14 years of quiet patience behind it. Mila puts both hands flat on the kitchen island. He breathes in. He breathes. Out. Jihoon moves around the counter and simply stands beside him, shoulder to shoulder, not touching, just present, a wall that chose to be warm. Mila looks up at Jiho. Jiho holds his gaze, steady and certain and already decided. Mila. And his voice is quiet and clear and does not shake. He was trying to move me. Jiho. Yes. Beat. Mila. 12 years ago. Jiho. Yes. Pause. Mila nods once. He picks up his tea. He takes a slow sip, and when he sets it down, his eyes have done something. They are not afraid. They are not performing calm. They are the specific expression of a person who has just watched a pattern complete itself across 12 years of their own life and has decided, and cleanly and without drama, what happens next. Mila, to all 3 of them. Okay. Beat. Mila. What do we need? Beat. Jisoo looked at him for a long moment. Not the reading look this time. Something warmer than that and more serious. The look he used when he was deciding whether to protect Mila from something or trust him with it fully. Jisoo. Everything. Mila. Then let's start. Beat. Jiho picked up his chopsticks again, finished his breakfast in 3 precise bites. I set the plate in the sink and pulled out his phone with the energy of a man shifting from one gear to a completely different vehicle. Jihoon cleared the counter without being asked, creating space the way he always created space when things were about to require room to move. Jisoo moved to the dining table and opened his laptop, and the screen reflected blue in his eyes, and he looked like exactly what he was, and which was someone who had been waiting for morning to come so he could begin. Mila sat at the table beside him. Jisoo, without looking up. You don't have to be in this room for this part. Mila. I know. Jisoo. It will not be simple and some of it will be difficult to hear. Mila. Jisoo. I asked what we need, not what you need. We. Jisoo stops typing. He looks at Mila. Mila looks back. Quietly, unfirmly. Park Seonjae sat across a desk from a 14-year-old version of me and decided I was a resource. He looked at a child who had just lost his pack and saw inventory. I have been living with the consequences of his decisions for 12 years without knowing they were decisions. Pause. Mila. So yes, I am in this room, I am at this table, and I want to know everything. The bond moves between all four of them at once, low and steady, like a current finding its level. Jisoo holds his gaze for one more moment. Then he turns the laptop so Mila can see the screen. Jisoo. Then here is everything. Beat. The next 2 hours were not cinematic in the way people imagined when they thought about powerful men planning takedowns. There was no dramatic war room with red strings and photographs. There was a dining table with 4 people, 3 laptops, and the one phone call Jiho took in the hallway, speaking in a voice so low Mila could not make out words, but could read the intention on the bond like a weather report, and a second pot of coffee that Jihoon made without announcement. Mila absorbed everything they laid out. The 17 subsidiaries, 6 phantom companies, the logistics contractor, the 3 confirmed missing Omegas whose files Jisoo had cross-referenced with Welfare Bureau records, the 14 additional cases that matched the pattern without confirmed connection, the financial transactions that formed a trail when you knew what you were looking at, and Park Seonjae. Park Seonjae, who had processed 63 welfare cases over 14 years. Park Seonjae, whose case closure rate was remarkably high because the cases did not stay open, they disappeared. Mila sat with that number, 63. Quietly, to no one specifically. 63. Jihoon, who had been standing behind him reading over his shoulder, put one hand on his shoulder, just rested it there, warm and steady and saying the thing that did not need words. Mila put his hand over Jihoon's briefly. Then he straightened. Mila. What's the sequence? Jisoo. Jiho handles the financial exposure first. The phantom companies collapse when their transaction records become visible to the right people. Jiho from his seat, not looking up from his phone. Already in motion. Jisoo. The logistics contractor loses his operating license by end of business today. His primary client, Yoon Pharma, will receive notification of a regulatory audit tomorrow morning. Mila. Regulatory meaning. Jisoo. Meaning the kind that does not end. Mila. And Serin. Jisoo. Serin is last. Mila. Why last? Jisoo. Because she needs to watch everything around her dissolve first. She needs to understand the shape of what happened before she understands who caused it. Beat. Mila. The slow version. Jisoo. The complete version. Pause. Mila looks at him. Quietly. And Park Seonjae. The table is very still. Jisoo. He's already in a building he cannot leave. Mila absorbs this. Mila. Since when? Jiho still not looking up. Since 5:15 this morning. Beat. Mila. The errand. Jiho looks up then, and his eyes are the private version, aren't the ones that existed only in this apartment, only for Mila. Jiho. No one who did what he did to 63 people walks freely through a Wednesday. The warmth and the cold exist in the same space in Mila's chest for a moment. Then the warmth wins. Softly. Thank you. Jiho, simply, you never have to thank us for that. Beat. Mila nods once. The morning continues. The sequence moves the way well-planned things move, not dramatically, not with noise, but with the specific certainty of dominoes laid carefully and released at exactly the right angle. By 11 in the morning, Mila's sensor was reading the city differently. He could not explain this logically and did not try to. His gift had never been loud, and it had never been precise like Jiho's precision, or steady like Jisoo's steadiness, or warm like Jihoon's warmth. It was atmospheric. And the atmosphere, by 11, felt like the moment after a held breath releases. Mila, now sitting by the window with his third tea, watching the Cheongdam street below. Jihoon appeared beside him, leaning against the window frame. Aja looking at the same street. Jihoon, how does it feel? Mila, my sensor? Jihoon, all of it. Mila thinks about this honestly, quietly, like something that was always the wrong shape is being corrected. Jihoon is quiet for a moment. Jihoon, you were 14 and completely alone, and someone looked at you and saw something to use. Mila, yes. Jihoon, and then you grew up and became someone who carries 4 plates without dropping any and knows every table's preference. Akan slips extra desserts to elderly couples on Thursdays. Beat. Mila looks at him. Jihoon, meeting his eyes, and this version of Jihoon's face was the most private version, the one that lived behind all the cooking and the remembering and the hands in the dark. Jihoon. He never got to decide what you became. He only got to make the beginning harder. Mila's chest does the thing again. He looks back at the street, quietly. You're going to make me emotional before noon, and I have opinions about that. Jihoon. I know. Mila. It's very inconsiderate. Jihoon. I know. Beat. Jihoon. I'm glad you existed in all those hard years, so you could end up here. Mila closes his eyes for exactly 1 second, then opens them, to the street, to the city, onto the Wednesday morning that was remaking itself around them. Softly. Me too. From the table, Jiho's voice, calm and clean. It's done. Both of them turn. Jiho is looking at his phone. Jiho. The phantom companies are visible. The regulatory notification went to Yoon Pharma's board 40 seconds ago. Park Seonjae's welfare license has been permanently revoked, and his case files transferred to an independent review body. Pause. Jiho. And the 3 confirmed missing individuals have been located. The room stops. Mila stands up from the window. Jiho, and something in his face moves just briefly, the thing that lived underneath the precision. They're safe. They were found this morning. Jiho's contact reached them before 6. Mila. All 3. Jiho. All 3. Beat. Mila puts his hand over his mouth for exactly 1 second. Then he drops it. His eyes are completely dry and completely bright. Quietly. Good. Jisoo, coming out of the study, phone in hand. Serin is aware something is happening. Her father's office has been attempting to reach their financial team since 9. So no one is answering. Mila? Because. Jisoo. Because their financial team is currently answering questions from people who do not accept declined calls. Mila? And Serin herself. Jisoo. She has a lunch reservation. Beat. Mila? Where? Jisoo looks at him, and the ghost of something almost warm is fully present now, not hidden, not composed away. Jisoo. Cheum. Mila stares at him. Jisoo. She made the reservation this morning. Table 4. Our same room. Beat. Mila. She went back. Jisoo. She went back. Mila is quiet for a moment. His sensor reads the shape of this and finds it almost elegant in the way that certain kinds of justice are elegant. She went back to the place where she poured ice water on a waiter she decided did not matter. She went back because people like her always went back to places where they felt powerful. She did not know that the waiter was gone. She did not know that the walls had been odd moving since last night. She did not know anything. Mila slowly. I want to be there. The 3 of them look at him. Mila steady, clear, not performing anything. Not to confront her, not to make a scene. I just want to be in the room when she understands. Jisoo. Minjae. Mila. She looked at me and decided I was beneath her. She filmed it. She laughed. Pause. Mila. I want her to know that the man she poured water on watched her world come apart from 10 meters away. Like, that's all. That's the only thing I want from her. Jisoo holds his gaze. Then he looks at Jihoon. Jihoon looks back with the expression of a man who has already decided and is waiting for everyone else to catch up. Jisoo looks at Jiho. Jiho. He's right. It's his. Jisoo is quiet for one more moment. Then, we'll be at the table beside her. Beat. Mila. You're going to hover. Jisoo. Adjacently. Mila. That's hovering with better vocabulary. Jisoo. And the warmth is fully visible now, present and real and 2 years deep. Yes, it is. Beat. Mila looks at all three of them. Jihoon with his careful hands and his extraordinary memory and his gray coat. Jiho with his precision and his 5 a.m. errands and his one real smile. Jisoo with his composure and his take the long way and the thing beneath his composure that was always, always there. Quietly and meaning every syllable. I love you, all three of you. I say conveniently and completely and without any plans to stop. The bond moves between all four of them at once. Warm, certain, true, Jihoon. We know. Jihoon, softer. We love you back, inconveniently and completely. Jiho. Same. Jisoo meeting his eyes. Even the composure is there and the warmth is there, and they are not in competition. Same. Beat. Mila nods. He stands. He goes to get dressed. And the four of them move through the apartment with the specific ease of people who have chosen each other so thoroughly that even the hard mornings feel like home. By 12:45, they are walking into Cheum. Bae Yuri at the host stand sees Mila first, blinks once, starts to speak. Mila, quietly, and with a small smile. We have a reservation. Party of 4. Yuri recovers beautifully because she was always good at her job. She leads them to a table in the main dining room. From the private dining room, through the open partition, Yoon Serin is already seated at table 4. Silver rings, bruised plum lips, a phone face up on the table, her father's name on the screen. Might a call she has not answered yet because she does not yet know how bad it is. Mila sits at the table beside the partition. He does not look at her. He picks up the menu. And then Serin's phone lights up again, and this time it is not her father. It is her financial advisor, and she answers it, and the color leaves her face in stages like a tide going out. Mila reads the menu. He already knows what he wants. The yuzu tart, obviously. Beside him. La Jihoon is also reading the menu with complete serenity. Across from him, Jisoo has his phone face down and his coffee already ordered. And Jiho, to his left, is looking at nothing in particular with the expression of a man whose morning errand produced exactly the results it was meant to produce. From table 4, Serin's voice, sharpening with the specific panic of someone whose certainty is leaving the building. What do you mean the accounts are frozen? But what do you mean all of them? Mila takes a sip of water. His sensor reads the room clearly. It does not read cruelty testing anymore. It reads consequence arriving on schedule. Quietly, only for his table, looking at the menu. The sea base here is excellent, by the way. I have strong opinions about the preparation. Jihoon. Tell me. Mila tells him. Jiho listens. Jisoo watches the room with the patience of a man who has all the time in the world. And at table 4, Yoon Serin's carefully constructed world continues its quiet, thorough, irreversible collapse. Mila does not watch it happen. He does not need to. He can feel it. And when Serin finally looks up from her phone, pale and shaking, scanning the room for something stable to land on, her eyes pass over their table. They land on Mila for exactly 1 second. She does not recognize him. He is not in a uniform. He is just a man at a table with 3 men who love him, eating yuzu tart, much completely at ease in the room she thought belonged to her. Mila meets her eyes. He smiles. Not the dangerous one. Not the apology one. The real one. The one that belongs to a person who knows exactly who he is and where he is going and who is coming home with him. Serin looks away first. Beat. Mila takes another bite of tart. Quietly to himself. More acid. He was right about the acid. A month later, the first Omega Welfare Reform Bill passed the Seoul City Assembly. Sponsored anonymously, funded quietly, built on 63 case files that an independent review body had taken apart and reconstructed as evidence. The 3 confirmed missing individuals were resettled with full bond registration and pack placement support. Cheum got a new private dining coordinator, promoted from the floor staff, and a young Omega named Song Bora, who had excellent instincts and did not drop plates. Park Seonjae did not walk freely through any more Wednesdays. Yoon Pharma's board dissolved its subsidiary network over 6 weeks under regulatory pressure that did not relent and was not designed to. Yoon Serin relocated to Jeju voluntarily, which in this context meant the only option that remained. And on a Thursday evening, 4 weeks after all of it, Mila sat in the rose garden on the building's private terrace with Jihoon's head in his lap, and Jisoo reading beside him and Jiho doing something on his phone that was probably not as boring as he made it look. The city was doing its evening thing below them, on golden slow. Mila ran his fingers through Jihoon's hair. Jihoon made a sound that meant, "Do not stop." Mila did not stop. Jisoo turned a page. Jiho put his phone down and looked at the sky for a moment with the expression of a man allowing himself to simply be somewhere. Mila looked at all of them. At this. At the specific, ordinary, irreplaceable shape of what they had built. Quietly, to no one and all of them. "This is mine too, you know." Jihoon, eyes closed. "We know." Jisoo, not looking up from his book, but the warmth fully present. "We know, Minjae." Jiho picks his phone back up, then sets it back down. Jiho. "Obviously." Beat. Mila smiles. The city turns gold below them. The bond moves between all 4 of them, warm and certain and completely permanently home. And that is enough. That is everything. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. If that ending wrecked you, hit subscribe. The next chapter drops soon.